Welcome to Crosstalk Radio, a podcast that's all about supporting and inspiring ministry leaders to lead with a heart full of kingdom purpose. Every week, we sit down with pastors, lay leaders, and faith leaders to shine a spotlight on ministries that are touching lives and changing communities. Together, we'll explore the principles, strategies, and inspiring stories that keep ministry thriving and impactful. Whether you're listening on the go, at your desk, or during a personal retreat, we are so glad you're here. Let's jump into today's conversation.
Welcome to Crosstalk this week. We're glad you're joining us, and I have a good friend that has been a mentor from a distance and personally in just recent years, and I'm grateful to have Brother Johnny Hunt on with us today. And Brother Johnny is finishing up or in the midst of some projects there in Branson, Missouri as we speak, so we brought him online. And we want to talk today about a project that he's invited me to be a part of, Difference Makers, in Nairobi, Kenya. Brother Johnny, just share with us a little bit about how you got connected to Nairobi, who we're working with, what the platform is, and why we're doing it, those kind of things.
Well, thanks, Harold. It's good to be with you, and that's a great question. Back in the late 80s, I went to Woodstock in December of 86. Before we moved into the 90s, I got involved in my very first international mission trip, which happened to be Kenya, and worked there with a missionary named Bruce Schmidt and worked among the Maasai, and absolutely loved it, and probably did, say, 6 trips there, some of them lasting up to 18 days, and took a large number of Woodstockers with me. And so I've been back a time or two over these many years, but just in recent years, as I've stepped away from pastoring in 2019 and then doing more itinerant ministry, I had a group of bishops to ask if they could do a Zoom call with me. Was not sure what the matter was. And then they told me that they had been reading some of my leadership material and that they sensed one of the greatest needs in their country was that their pastors be informed and trained in leadership. They're talking about things like vision and your mission and strategies and goals, and lead intentionally, that take the Great Commission, take it serious, but then come up with a plan, even like Nehemiah did. How do you accomplish something? So in that context, the request was overwhelming, Harold. Here's what I tell everyone. I don't think I have enough life left to accomplish this mission. And that's understandable, and it's okay. My time will run out before I can accomplish all the work. And that's why I appreciate guys like you and the ones you bring and the other pastors that are joining us that are going and then are buying into the mission and then owning a piece of it, because one person, one organization will never accomplish it any more than the International Mission Board will reach the world. We need all the evangelicals of the world preaching the gospel. So we made a commitment. In the first 2 years, I did 2 conferences. I'd be there in February, then I'd go back again in August or September. And now we've zeroed in on just one. But what really makes Difference Makers unique is that the men and women that are in the room are the best of the best from probably this year. I think we're at 9 countries in Africa. And then, as you know, you can talk about it. Some of you bring Pakistanians and others that are being influenced by it, that you'll do the same thing, Lord willing, in their countries. But they promise that if we would train them and give them our material and our notes and recordings of everything we do, they would in turn train the others in the villages. And I know that one of the men, he's a lawyer that was running for president of Zimbabwe, recently sent me a picture showing over 500 men and women in a room that he was teaching lessons that he had written from my latest leadership book. And what a joy it was to see that he was replicating what we were doing. And so that's the only way to do it. So again, this year, we'll probably push closer to 600. We've extended the conference. We've been doing 2 days. We've moved it to 3 days. We're making leadership books available to them, and they all read English. As you remember, we didn't have to have a translator in that room, all educated. Like, say, Uganda, when we traveled there, English has become the language of the Ugandan people now. So by the grace of God, we want to do what 1 Timothy 2:2 teaches, that we want to train leaders that will train leaders.
Yes,
and
sir.
so that's our passion. And then as we're there, you can talk some more about it. God's opened the door for men's conferences. Some are going and actually preaching in churches. They're doing other conferences there in addition to difference makers, where they're moving further out of the perimeter of Nairobi to touch greater needs.
Well, you mentioned a couple of things, and when I go back to 2 Timothy 2:2, the reality is, he said, find faithful men. And you mentioned these are high-level folks that have some skills and ability to receive very quickly and already have a platform for it. So that's a blessing. But you also mentioned something, Brother Johnny, I'd like for you to drill down in for just a little bit, and that is you're engaging other pastors and leaders from here in America. And the reality is, when you said one institution, one group, one evangelical group can't cover it all, you're intending on them to spread that out or connect, make these connections happen where there's a focus from one church to another group, so that they're strengthening that and multiplying that. Why is it, after the many years that you've gone from Cuba to everywhere else you've been able to approach, why is it that that's part of your DNA in this process of connecting that?
You know, Harold, I actually saw myself the last, especially 20 to 25 years of pastoring, as one that was discipling pastors and missions. And it was like, I would take them on mission. It was, many pastors would go to me, and it was really like a vision trip. And then once they saw the work and were engaged in the work and saw, what God was up to, I would meet with them in a room with all the missionaries that we had been working with, say like in Argentina, and I would get a good information. I would say to them, I just look at one of the guys and say, hey, let me tell you what this ought to look like for you. Why don't your church adopt this missionary right here? Mm-hmm. Why don't y'all schedule something to go to the part of South America or Argentina where he's serving? And so we did that. Now, one of the problems is I asked that organization recently, Harold, I was meeting with a CEO of the one in Argentina, and I said, the men that are coming now, are they bringing a good group of guys with them? That's how I trained them. And he named them, and there were numerous ones that went with me, and without exception, they were all traveling alone. And I just never did that. I noticed here you're an evangelist, and yet you bring numerous pastors, whether you and I, we've been in Ethiopia together, we've been in Uganda, and now we're in Kenya together. Those three places, you and I have served together in just the last 3 years. But both of us had a number of pastors with us. So when we talk about discipling high-level leaders in leadership, the Kenyans, and remember, a good number of the president's cabinet was in our room. Not unlike America, but even greater numbers, 95% of the pastors in Kenya are bivocational. They have to be. Yeah. So as a result of that, a lot of them are government officials, but they're pastors, or they're in the army, but they're pastors. And it's neat working with these men that are very educated and very capable of discipling another generation. But think of that. When you take those pastors and they get more committed, I'm sure there are times they're in Africa when you're not there.
Yes, sir.
So,
and that should be our goal.
Exactly. One of my statements when I first went to Woodstock is that God would give me a ministry upon which the sun never sets. That means that there's never a time in my life that somebody that I've equipped or challenged or pastored, shepherded, mentored, they're out serving, and there's just never a time. Sun never sets on our ministry. Because some of them are planted there now. They and that will happen probably in the next couple of years. Somebody from our group will probably end up being planted among the people groups.
There's a couple of things I'd ask you to share about that. And when you say that you've challenged them, and you're still a part of that in a sense. The one of the lessons that I've heard you teach while we've been over there to help them as well is the insecure leader in relation to, it's not just what I'm doing, it's what I'm empowering other people to do. Why do you think that pastors in the culture today from America have this resistance to overlay into other evangelical groups and even across the table to appear that's a pastor? Why do they have that problem?
Yeah. There's something we ought to learn as laymen, even before we became pastors, that we carry over into our pastorate. And that is, Oswald Chambers used to say that when a man first gets saved, says he'll suck the life out of you until he learns to suck his life from Christ. All right, well, these guys that we're trying to take with us and mentor, they're going with us, Harold, but they're leaning on us. But what we're doing the whole time we're there is trying to wean them. Guys are starting to say, man, I heard you teach. I'd love for you to come to my community or to my country. See, I've got all those 9 countries. Most of them are inviting me. But I can't, I need to focus in on where I feel I have the greatest influence with my life right now. And it's not to say I won't go to the others, but my focus is going to stay on difference makers and multiply the ones you bring and the ones I bring and that God gives us to go to the other places. But yeah, it's just not going to happen if that doesn't happen. So if the person stays dependent on me, I've failed in the context of disciple making. Yeah. I ought to be teaching them to depend on Christ. Here's what I learned. When I came into one of the 7 statements of my life is that I want to model generosity and I want to touch poverty. I found out a person that is genuinely in poverty does not want what I want. They want me to lend them a hand up by teaching them to be able to have and to earn like I have and I've earned. So it's not that they want what I've got. So, it's bad that people sit on the street and they just want what you got. But that's not genuine poverty. And I think it's the same thing when they're over there. I don't believe they just want what we want when we go there. Nobody just had their hand out that, hey, the only thing you can do is help me with money. And when I did ask them, like, are there some needs I might could stand with you in? It was so ridiculously low. The focus was still on, they wanted to reach people, and he wanted me to mentor him. I've got a couple of guys that I mentor each month on Zoom calls. But that's what they want. They don't want what I've got in the sense of finances. They want what I've learned about how to engage people and how to build ministry. When we were in Cartagena, Colombia. I'd never been to Colombia, and I'd love for you to go with me. But anyway, what happened, you need something else to do, Harold. But what happened is these guys said they had these dreams in their heart of what they ought to do in ministry, but in their country, they didn't know anybody that was teaching that to affirm them. So it had just stayed in their heart. And I've often said you can have a dream in your heart and die with it in your heart. So when I began to talk to those guys about how to connect the dots on becoming an intentional leader, they begin to say, yes, that's what I've had in my heart. And they affirmed them. So we packed the place out where we were teaching. But here's what they said. We promise you, if you'll come back next year, there'll be 5 times as many people, because we had no idea that you could bring this value. And that's what we're trying to do. We just want to add value to those people's lives. But as we went, you mentioned, it's like we go to Echoes of Mercy sometime to deal with the widows and stuff that you saw. But some of the guys that were with us on our last trip, they've already taken back large numbers of lay people that specialize in areas that can help these ministries. Yeah, and that's our ultimate goal. It's not just a bunch of us preachers to own this and to go, but eventually for each of those preachers to empower their people to go and to serve these causes.
One of the refreshing things that 2 ways, Brother Johnny, as we also ended up in Uganda together on the platform, and when we get done with these conferences, there's a hunger, not for the personalities, but for I'll use this term, the information. Simply, they give us more. We know what we're trying to get done, but nobody's ever shown us what to do. And the other is that there's so many facets that a church does not have to be a mega church. They don't have to have a lot of different resources. There are means and ways that you can plug into a pastor or a leadership group there and help them with something, whether that's a medical team or a sports team or whatever the case may be. But the ultimate goal is not to go do work for them. The ultimate goal is for us to train that leader that's over there to be able to engage his people. So it's not like you have to invest everything you got at the church into that one location. Right. You can do something with it and be sure that there's something to it. And that Barnabas effect, it blows my mind how many people over there just need encouragement.
Exactly.
I don't know if you want to speak to that in relation to Cuba and other places that you go, but I think the American culture, we've forgotten that people are not begging from America. They just see what we've got and they want to know how to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It's amazing. I got another request, and it's from the same group, but Calvary Church is the largest church on the island of Cuba, a Baptist church. And the pastor that's there has been a friend for many years, but I haven't been back to Cuba in about maybe 5-6 years, maybe even before COVID. So probably pushing 6 to 7. But they're saying, man, we really could use the encouragement. And they are every Cuban that writes me. They don't ask for anything other than they say, pray for us. We have moved into what we consider hard times. Now, if you and I go to Cuba, we look at it and think, oh, my God, this is hard. Well, that's normal for them. That's their norm. So they have adjusted their life and even the Spirit of God helping them to embrace their hardship. But they're even saying now that what we have endured has moved to a whole new level. They said the government is just constantly cutting off our power or withholding our rations, like they ration their food to them and water too. So it's become, so we go there. And again, we encourage them in the Lord. I mean, we have to reach back, and I'm grateful we got the Word of God. And, Peter says, hey, don't consider it strange when you go through these times of suffering. And if you'll allow it, he uses 4 different terminologies that are architectural terminologies of how God's establishing you and he's building you and he's anchoring you. He's getting you deeper. And then we learn from it, because I leave there and I think, man, I'm going to tell you, I'm not where those brothers are. I mean, I've not suffered like them. I'm not sure how I would do in their culture, but we're measuring against what we've known instead of what they've been raised in. But again, 99% of the time when I get a text or an email from Cuba, it's really about prayer. It's not, hey, is there any way you can find it in your budget? I hardly ever. That would be an exception to the rule. And Harold, it's a good point you brought up about the church. You and I both, and especially there with all that we ministered to in our recent conference in Pigeon Forge, there would be guys that would say, Harold, I'd love to go, but hey, my church just runs 100. Here's my question. Charles Stanley said the older you get, the fewer answers you have, so have better questions. So my question to that young preacher would be this: how many do you have to run to obey the Great Commission? So it's not about, is his church large enough to go? And then he never knows what God may bring out of the people as they begin to invest in the mission of Christ. And so sometimes, I've told you the story, I believe, about a man that offered a friend of ours a very good gift as a church member at the end of the year, but let it be known that it was only a fourth of what he had just given another ministry. And he said, well, I'm just grateful for what I got. And he said, well, don't you want to know why I gave them 4 times more than I gave you? And he said, well, not really, because I want to be grateful for what you gave. He said, well, I want you to ask. He said, okay, why did you give them 4 times as much? And Harold's answer was, because he has 4 times the vision you do. So a lot of times, if that preacher would move from having a local church on his heart and begin as much as he can, step by step, to having the world in his heart. God so loved not America, God so loved not Kentucky or Georgia. God so loved the world. We need to love what he loves. We say that sometimes. I want to love what he loves, hate what he hates. Well, do I love the Great Commission? So there's some guys that are going to listen to this that ought to reach out to you and I, and they ought to say this: how do I join you?
Yeah.
How do I join you?
Well, that's a good segue to close out. I want to thank you, Brother Johnny, for a model of what I learned some 25 years ago from a fellow by name Roger Palmer, and God's given me opportunity to connect to men like you, and I'm overly blessed. But here's what he said one time. He said, Jesus did it. He did it with them. He let them do it, and he left them. When we think it's about us and all that we can do, we miss it. And so sometimes the platform causes people to think, well, I can't do that. Well, yes, you can. You just got to do what you can do where you're at and let God bless that. So give them just some quick detail as far as when this is going to happen so they can be praying and basically what you're providing for the pastors. And then we're going to jump off of here today.
Okay. We're headed out this time. Our date is, get it down exactly. We leave on the 24th of August, and we'll be back on September the 2nd. So we're normally going about 10 days. And I need to say to the pastor what a layperson said to me this week. They said, or they're a staff person, and they said, I believe God wants me to go, but I'm finding it difficult to get the finances this time. And I said, well, I'll support you as much as I can. And if you let it be known, others would. And that's the thing. These pastors can write a letter to family and friends and say, hey, most of all, just pray for me. But if you can help me, I've got to raise this. And what you're doing is saying, Lord, I'm willing to be made willing. I'm willing to be made willing. So if you want me to go, supply this need. So think about that, Harold. We didn't even talk about that aspect. God can develop the faith in the person of the young pastor that decides to go with us by supplying their needs and showing his faithfulness to them. And then they can turn around and tell their people, hey, I had a need. And it's not just that Elijah had a need and God met it, but when did God meet your need? Is the God of Elijah still meeting needs today? So I would love for them to go. To those that want to go, we always add a couple of days on the end for a safari. Why? You're 8,800 miles from Atlanta, Georgia. You're over halfway around the world.
Yeah.
Why don't you go see something while you're there? So if you want to, but if not, you can choose to come back a couple of days early or
you can hang out with me and go to another country when we leave.
Go to another country with you like you do every time. Yeah. So,
well, Brother
they'll
Johnny,
see how they minister to widows and all, but it'll be a great trip.
Yeah. Thank you for being here today. Difference Makers, August 24th through the 28th. Pray for that. If you want to invest or participate in that, contact me. I'll get you connected, Brother Johnny, if necessary. Let's have a conversation. But ultimately, we're investing in some pastors so that they can preach the gospel. And as I say that today, let me just say this: no matter where we're at in the world, whether it's Nairobi, those other 9 countries, or people that are here in America trying to figure it out, people need the Lord. And how you do that is understand that he died for you because you're a sinner. You put your faith in him, he'll change your life, and he might send you somewhere else to tell somebody else. Till we get back again, God bless, and pray for us as we go to Nairobi, Kenya. God bless.
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on Crosstalk Radio. We hope you're walking away inspired to use your unique talents to serve God's kingdom this week. If today's conversation challenged you or gave you fresh insight for your ministry, we'd love to hear from you. Visit our website at hrministries.net to drop us a line, subscribe to our newsletter, or explore our YouTube channel, Cyrus Network Media, for more Crosstalk Radio episodes. On behalf of HR Ministries, thank you to everyone who invests their time, prayers, and gifts into the lives of others for God's kingdom. Until next time, lead with a kingdom purpose, stand firm in your calling, and we'll see you right here on the next episode of Crosstalk Radio.